Let's talk tourism.
Matt Landau is an authority on vacation rentals. After learning the industry from the ground up in Panama, Matt began sharing his discoveries with operators around the world. He facilitates VRMB.com, an online community of vacation rentals professionals. He also hosts the Unlocked podcast and the Vacation Rental Show. On top of that, I've known him since he was in university and we both had hair. Matt, let's talk tourism.
Let's talk tourism. Is that your British accent in the intro?
That is Adam Baker. I'm surprised you
Okay.
don't know him. He's kind of famous.
All right, very good. Nice to be here.
Good to see you, Matt. First and foremost, since you know gobs and gobs of vacation rentals, what is your take on why travelers love vacation rental properties? What is this whole trend about? That's at this point, it's probably no longer a trend, right? I mean, it's the thing.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily new either. People have been renting out homes for a really long time. Only over the past couple decades has it materialized into an online marketplace, and that's when I think most people point at it becoming a trend. People like booking vacation rentals for the exact same reasons the entire time. Value, booking a vacation rental ends up being better value than booking several hotel rooms with your group. Privacy and spaciousness that you get to share with your group and create memories. Kitchen, the fact that you don't necessarily have to go to restaurants in town, but rather can, make your own lunch on the side. And the general standalone nature of a home has become so much more important now as a result of the pandemic. People don't want to touch hotel elevator buttons as much as they used to. So it's the same core value proposition that we've always sung. It's just now even more exciting.
Did you and your family frequent vacation rentals when you were a kid?
We did. That was almost exclusively the way that we traveled, but I never viewed it as really like an industry or a sector. Yeah. I just viewed it as the places that we stayed. And only when I bought tulipanes in Panama did I realize that there's an actual market for this thing.
So now that you've been immersed for, how long now? How many years has it been since you've been, really immersed in vacation rentals?
I would say back to 2007, when we both started exploring Panama, that I really got my feet wet, started getting my hands dirty, and kind of learned everything the hard way, like a lot of other vacation rental professionals.
So as you started aggregating more and more data through this community that you've built, what has been statistically surprising to you? Was there some finding or some number, some metric, some factoid that you're like, wow, I never would have guessed that?
The category awareness is the most interesting one. So we, like on this call, we've known about vacation rentals and stayed in vacation rentals for a long time. They're nothing really new to us. But seeing the category awareness, that is to say, the general population that is aware that they could book a vacation rental, much less the people that have actually done so, is always staggeringly lower than you would have ever imagined. So we're still at the very, very tip of that iceberg. And I'm always amazed that only now that Airbnb has kind of become this phenomenon are people starting to consider this new style of accommodation on average.
Yeah, it is interesting that for some people, it still seems like a risky decision or a novel decision.
And it is. In all fairness, if I didn't have my clients or contacts and I was going somewhere new and I was going to book a vacation home, it's a bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
I don't have a curator like Costa Rica Luxury Vacation who's done all the vetting for me. If you're just picking a listing out of a feed and crossing your fingers that the reviews are accurate, it's not always the most consistent product. So that's the downside of having a new industry.
Via your community, your podcast, speaking engagements, you've talked to so many people in and around different layers of the industry. What are the challenges from the property management side of actually pleasing the guest? What are these people telling you?
The first challenge from the property management side is that they have to please the guest and they have to please the homeowner.
Right.
They have two masters in that sense. And there's very few other industries where you literally have to balance those two precious relationships. So
Yeah.
that is extremely difficult unless you're in a market where people are just begging you to take your property. You have to really wow your guests and your homeowners. So that's right off the bat a very surprising thing to a lot of newcomers. The second part is the amount of tech that you need to assemble. Now, I will put an asterisk on that one. The amount of technology at our disposal right now is better than it has ever been, from property management software, which is our core transmission of the business, to any variety of third-party software, whether it's dynamic pricing, a housekeeping module to allow you to communicate quickly with your team, smart home automation. There's all this new software out there that is amazing. I mean, it allows an independent owner manager to achieve just things that were never possible a couple of years ago even. But putting it all together is a very challenging process. Assembling a tech stack in our industry, I would argue, is as difficult as it gets. So
Yeah.
most of our colleagues are not tech savvy. They don't enjoy it. They know they need it, but the learning curve is just a bit difficult.
Yeah, it's funny. We have joked about this for a long time down here in the developing world, that as lucrative and important and big of a trend as this thing is, it's amazing how for a whole lot of industries, it's an afterthought. You know, if you're the real estate guy, you don't really want to be in it. If you're the property management guy, you don't necessarily want to be in real estate. If you're in a tourism intermediary like me, you don't really want to deal with it. Any of these folks, you know, everybody just wants it to be good. And yet, obviously, reaching that level of scalability and consistency is a huge challenge. And you know, even with Airbnb sending back what, $1 billion in refunds, the industry is still trying to figure out norms. So it's
Yeah.
going to be fascinating to see how or who this is addressed, who addresses this. Along those lines, where do you see these huge gaps? Like, where is the traditional tourism sector, a la hotels, resorts? Where is it still more advanced or more mature, or still have an advantage over rentals?
Branding and marketing for sure. Vacation rental owners and managers, they're not trained in either of those things, and it requires a lot of time and focus. And that's something that I always end up using conventional hospitality examples as the North Star in that sense, because you guys have just figured out the branding and the marketing so well. The true hospitality stuff, the stuff that when we look at like the gold standard, whether it's Four Seasons there in Papagayo, or even some of those boutique hotels in Manuel Antonio, the hospitality in your industry is spectacular. I mean, that's what you do. For a vacation rental professional, it's kind of what we do by accident, by default. Like, we're by nature hospitable, welcoming people. We have kind of these instincts of what guests would like because we put ourselves in the shoes of those guests. What do we like at our homes? But we don't have the formality, the development of that hospitality training like you do. So it's very tricky to, for instance, hire a good cleaning team who understands everything that would go in a traditional hotel for a small scale vacation rental, because you just don't have the budget or you just don't have the amount of properties. So that difference for me is something that we're still working on. And especially the fact that now the barrier to entry for our industry is so low. Anybody could put up a listing on Airbnb or VRBO overnight and accept as a traveler, your hard-earned dollars for your vacation. The fact that that barrier to entry is so low means the variety of hospitality that you're going to get as a guest is just all over the place. Yeah. So yes, we need some standards. Unfortunately, that's a tricky one, because you don't want to depend on the listing sites to create the standards. But at the same time, how do you unify a fragmented industry?
Yeah, it's sort of the blessing and the curse, right?
Yes.
You've traveled yourself all over the place for your show and for leisure and for fun, for work. you've obviously experienced that spectrum of rentals yourself. What's the most creative or unique amenity or service that you've seen delivered from a non-traditional lodging option?
For me, the most impressive amenities, let's say, are the ones that leave you with as a guest with almost a newfound like purpose. And I know that sounds very bold. People are thinking chocolates on the pillows,
Right.
but I'll give you a perfect example. A property that we stayed at and filmed a show at in Le Marche, Italy is called Casal dei Fichi. And this is a couple who are very committed to the environment. It's a luxury farm, a converted farmhouse. Every aspect of those properties in that building are eco-friendly, from the glass bottles, they refuse all single-use plastics, to all of the toilet paper and things like this. But most importantly, they have this amazing deal with local businesses where if you shop, whether it's at a store or a really high-end restaurant as part of their little fleet, they'll give you a discount. I think it's 20%. They ask that you pass that discounted money along to the host, Bob and Ian, who then invest that money in planting trees to offset your carbon cost of getting there. And after leaving that property, I had a whole new understanding of like my role in the environment. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say how naive or ignorant I was beforehand, but it just turned me on to this whole new style of traveling. And I think if an amenity about the place that we stay can somehow change you in that way, it doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be a grand, elaborate campaign or anything. If it can somehow change the way you see the world, you have a guest for life.
Yeah, very well put. And I think vacation rentals are uniquely positioned in that regard because I love vacation rentals in certain situations, certainly when I'm traveling with my family, when I'm traveling for business to a cool place like a San Francisco, when I want to feel like I'm San Franciscan for the week. Um, the word that always comes back to me is connection. You want to feel connected to the people or the place itself, and there's something about a vacation rental that's got slightly less veneer than a more formal property, where you're like, oh, this I feel a little bit more like a local, and you feel some connection to the place you just went to, or maybe that family that was your host or the people. And obviously, if you're planting a tree or something, you've got a connection there that theoretically might outlive you. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing what some of these non-traditional um, hoteliers, if I could say that, are thinking up that now hotels are chasing to try to keep up with.
If the secret formula for building a successful small business is being passionate about it, that really resonates with vacation rental owners and managers who are drawn to that destination because they formed life memories there with their family. They invested there, and now they want to share that love with visitors. I mean,
Yeah.
that's about as passionate as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key word, right? Is they're sharing something with you. What kind of niches, subsegments, tranches, whatever the buzzword is this week in the industry, how do you see vacation rentals stratifying? How are we going to start to label and segment these things?
What we don't really have yet is communities online, and I know that is a buzzword too.
It's all right.
Collections of properties that are geared towards particular special interests,
Yeah.
whether it's a geographic common interest or literally a special interest or a special style. And I know that the conventional hospitality world has figured this out already, but because vacation rentals are so new, we don't really have developed communities of, let's say, gay-friendly vacation rental collections, pet-friendly vacation rental properties that are perfect for groups with kids, so that kids don't, fall through the let's say the balcony. You can tell I don't have kids. But this kind of like niche, I think, is the single biggest untapped potential in our industry, because it exists already. There are vacation rental owners and managers who are passionate about these things. They're just not really packaged for the forward-facing consumer yet. Really, all there is so far is little filter buttons on Airbnb or VRBO that say, okay, I got a pet, show me the properties that are pet friendly. Yeah. But when you look at a miniature example of this, Farm Stay US, I believe it's called. Mm-hmm. It's effectively a listing site for vacation rental properties that are located on farms. Tremendously successful, super niche, not rocket science or anything like that. But both as a traveler, if I like farms, I'm choosing one of those properties. And as a host, owner, or manager, if I want to list my property to people who truly appreciate it, that's just a perfect example. So we really don't have those communities or niches developed out just yet. Eco-friendly is another important one. We just have our first women-specific listing site, which is called We Go Lightly, which is, again, for women who are uncomfortable booking a random place in a random destination because they don't know what the welcoming situation is going to be like. So I think this is the biggest opportunity, and it also just happens to fit into our wheelhouse.
Cool. How do you see the major hotel brands adapting to this? You know, obviously they've been under attack. Marriott's gone out and made a gazillion acquisitions. Managed villas, managed rentals are you know, that term's being thrown around more and more. Also, post-pandemic here, the whole world's gone crazy with special purpose acquisition corps and hedge funds. What do you think? How do the hotels strike back? What do you see them doing next?
I don't know about striking back because that sounds combative to me. I think in terms of evolution, how will they adapt? And I've seen the hotel industry trying to understand what it is that people love about the vacation rentals and then trying to do some version of that. The funny caveat, the wrench in those plans is that our industry is not really made for scale in a sense. Yeah, we could use better standards. Yes, we could use more streamlined operations. Yes, it would be cool to have one vacation rental brand that you can choose wherever you happen to travel. But the real magic of vacation rentals is in the anti-scale. It's what I call the limited edition. It simply cannot be replicated. So that's what makes our industry different. And I think that's what makes it exciting to independent owners and managers, because you don't have to compete with a big, rich Marriott in order to have your little place and appeal to people.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, it's not unlike when everybody thought that InBev in buying Budweiser was going to eat the entire beverage world. But lo and behold, people like local beverage. They like specialty beverage. They like our very particular taste that does not appeal to the masses. So there are so many examples here, whether it's beer or vacation rentals, where, well, in B school, they tell us the ultimate goal is scale. I agree with you. There's sort of, if anything, post-pandemic trend-wise, I could see a complete reversal of that, where people want more unique, authentic, local, special, you know?
The National Brewers Association is a fantastic analogy because that's a community that, the large beer companies have attempted to buy a lot of the most successful craft brew, but a lot of them don't want to sell. They want to continue running their own small batch companies. And they have an association that empowers them and enables them to do that, whether it's through bulk purchasing in the form of some sort of collective, or really just like having a say when it comes to lobbying or actually like input at that level, being united behind one megaphone. I think that's a really good example, and I use it often for vacation rentals to follow.
Obviously predictions are notoriously hard, especially about the future. What is your big post-pandemic prediction for the world of travel? How do you think people will come out of this traveling differently?
I will tend to focus less on the things that will change and more the things that I know for a fact will stay the same, because I think a lot of people can build businesses on that over the course of the next several decades. I think it's the back to the basics stuff. It's everything that we've already talked about from an actual value proposition, why people are choosing vacation rentals, let's say, as a product instead of a conventional hotel. And then it's these other things like handwritten notes, only the most boutique of hotels do you get that level of personalization. Whereas a vacation rental is really equipped, if you got one property, to write a handwritten thank you note to every guest who stays. Not outrageous. So that return to the old fashioned, and I think that return to creating memories with our loved ones, nothing new by any means. I just think it's about to have an explosion of pent up energy in that sense. I was just talking last night with a DJ friend of mine who says the demand for parties, for people to dance, is greater right now than it has ever been in any of our lifetimes. And of course, he happens to be the gatekeeper there who actually hosts the parties. And that's just about to explode in the same way that I think this return to the core things, connecting with people, making really amazing memories, maybe doing some adventures that you wouldn't have done previously, jumping off the rope swing that you wouldn't have otherwise, trying something new. I think that's always what travel has been about, but perhaps the all-inclusive resort world got us into more like the predictable, like let's just go and sit by the pool and have a daiquiri. I like to think that this is kind of bringing out some of that aspirational travel, and that people will be a little bit more open when they travel. Heck, that's what the world needs, is people a little bit more open and vulnerable, connecting with one another.
Agreed. I'm really hoping for two trends. We're seeing early indications of these things, but I'm hoping they stick. One is I really hope people specifically from the United States travel longer, not this 6 nights in and out, cram all the fun I can in my face at one time because I work so hard and my boss barely gives me time off, or I'm taking phone calls the whole time because I'm a lawyer. I hope that people start to travel for more 10, 12 days, really exploring places like a European or a Canadian. Second thing that I think will facilitate that, again, both of these dovetail perfectly into vacation rentals. I really hope more and more people who go, oh, I couldn't do that. I could not travel for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I can't do that. I do believe that now we're finding, courtesy of this post-pandemic Zoom-enabled world, you can work and travel. Particularly if you're a spouse, if you're married and have kids, one of you can work one day, one of you can work the next day. There is this ability to blend work and travel more easily than we've ever done before. So anybody that's got this excuse, that, oh, I couldn't possibly go somewhere for 10, yes, you can. It can be done.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from my dear friends who have been locked into office jobs ever since they graduated. Now that they don't have to go into the office at all, they're like, oh, I can live out that dream that I had to, spend a month in Istanbul. It's just opening this whole new world of travel for them. And this taps into one of the important amenities of the vacation rental of the future, and that is high-speed internet connection that's completely dependable, and ideally some working space that people can get their work done. That was not nearly as important pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And now if somebody's got that, they can pretty much be anywhere.
Yeah, we keep joking here too that the new amenities is no longer going to be, do you have a gym? It's, do you have a Herman Miller chair and fiber optic internet, right?
Yeah.
We could do the sit-ups later. You were in the mecca of relocation, staycation. I thought I was going for a week and I stayed for a month, maybe the rest of my life, Miami, Florida, right? What are you seeing there as half of New York City and Miami right now?
Yes, there's a mass migration. I only moved here in July, and I chose to move here because I um, lived with my parents for 4 months.
What was that
During the
like?
quarantine.
Different podcast.
That was really the tipping point. I had always wanted to move to Miami, and I just figured, okay, if it's going to happen, it's got to be now. Just made a couple of phone calls. Can I close my lease here? Can I move in there? So I am new here as well, but there is just a mass migration of people from all over coming to Miami. I think it started off just because people wanted to have nice outdoor lifestyles and be able to breathe, as opposed to being cooped up in a tiny city condo. But I think that has evolved as some of these trends that you just mentioned are playing out with work, that people are choosing to relocate. And of course, there's no state a personal income tax on the state. So that's like a huge advantage. And then Miami, of course, is a unique destinations. And like all of them, it changes and has energy. And so far, it's been really, really amazing. I will say that on, average, a new person that I meet is not from Miami.
Sure.
That's definitely a thing.
Sure. Last question. Where is the first place you're traveling post-pandemic?
Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, I have a meeting there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Atlanta, explore some of the rural Blue Ridge Mountains outside of Atlanta. Were you expecting something more glamorous?
I thought maybe, I don't know, Milan, Barbados.
Somebody asked me that question yesterday when I said Atlanta. They were like, okay. Atlanta is literally the first place that I am traveling. Where's the place that I'm most excited about going post-pandemic? I really want to get a little Europe back into my mouth. I really miss everything about Europe, specifically Italy and Spain. I have so many close colleagues and friends there. So that will happen in due time. But for the moment, I'm enjoying exploring my backyard.
Awesome.
I've been doing more road trips now than I think ever, and wouldn't have done that otherwise.
When's your next episode of your show filming?
Okay, so two interesting things have happened, Casey, since the last time you and I spoke. The first is that we have signed some licensing or distribution deals. So now our show, the Vacation Rental Show, which you can find on YouTube, will also be on all airport televisions.
Cool.
That's kind of cool. The monitors that you sit, watch when you're waiting for your flight. That's exciting. And we are actually heading out on the road in about 2 weeks' time to begin filming a new documentary all about the short-term rental movement, the history, also some of the challenges that go into operating a sustainable business. And that will probably complete at the end of May. So we are going to be very busy documenting what this pandemic means to our sector.
Excellent. I will absolutely watch that. All of your stuff is super cool, and Stuart does a great job with the cinematography.
Shout out to Stuart.
Always fun talking about tourism. Best of luck post-pandemic, and I can't wait to see what you got coming out next.
All right. Have a good week.
You too, man.
Let's talk tourism.